This Fleet Equipment Unscripted interview is presented by Hendrickson, a leading manufacturer of heavy-duty suspension systems and components to the global commercial transportation industry. Visit hendrickson-intl.com to learn more.
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Morgan, Content Director for Fleet Equipment, and welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. Today we're talking with Jake Schell, Associate Product Manager, Mitchell 1. Jake, great to see you.
Hi Jason, great to see you too. Good to be back again.
That's right, and regular Fleet Equipment readers, watchers, our audience would recognize you from our virtual pages. You are a columnist for us. You provide great service content every month. And so I always like to connect with you just to kind of pick your brain a little further. You always write some great columns. I want to get into some of the recent stuff that you've written. But first, something that I thought about, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to catch up with Jake. I need to know what you think the most important thing a technician needs to understand about the truck service process. You cover a lot of material every month. If there's one thing that technicians need to know, what is it?
The most important things that technicians need to know is that the service work that they're performing, their lives and the lives of others depend on that work being done accurately and completely, so that nobody gets hurt, so that they keep themselves and everybody else in the shop safe, and then also everyone out on the road safe. That is the most important job that they have, is keeping everyone safe.
Yeah, well, and I like that too. Safe, I know safety is big, productivity is big, and I like that kind of macro view, right? Because it's very easy to get caught in the, I've got this job to do, and I've got this job to do, and I got this job to do, and I just need to get to my end of my day because of X, Y, Z, or I'm going to do this or that. But taking that step back, right, and looking at the big picture, I think is something we don't probably do often enough.
Right. And there's several things you need to do to make that safety happen. And the first one is to know your process, to know what the procedures are that you're going to be doing. Go in and consult the surface information before you begin to work on the vehicle, to know if there's any of the safety precautions that you need to be taking. What will the procedure entail? Do I need any special tools? What environment do I need to do this in? And that sort of thing is critical to doing it right in the first place. Right. And then another thing is that to keep the overall vehicle in focus. Often as technicians, we get myopic in our focus when we have, I have this noise I'm going after, and that's what I'm going after, and forget about the rest of the vehicle. And in many cases, the sounds and issues that we have are connected to something else and being caused by that other component that we may completely overlook in the process of our laser-like focus on what we may think is the problem and completely miss it. And that results in incomplete service, comebacks, and that sort of thing that will just, degrade your ability as a technician, and your reputation will fall because you're not taking in the entire vehicle. Actually, the best time saver for a technician is not how fast you can spin the wrenches. It's making sure that the job is done completely right the first time, and not having to worry about comebacks, and making sure that it's done properly. That is the number one time saver for any technician, is making sure it's done correctly the first time.
Right, and going back to that, your big bullet point and takeaway too of safety, I feel like it relates to safety in a lot of ways, because if there is an issue or a comeback, that issue is going to crop out on the road. You don't want a truck parked on the side of the road. You don't want to put a driver in a position where they're not sure what's going on, or that there's a service issue they need to take care of. I mean, it just creates an environment where your mind's somewhere else, right? It's somewhere else, it's on the problem, and it's not being, it can compromise the safety on the road. You wrote a great article recently too about shop safety, and you highlighted the dangerous nature of a shop, which was interesting because I feel like it's easy to lose that perspective. You're in the shop every day. You become very comfortable in the shop, right? You named a couple great safety practices here of setting up your job, right? Being aware of the entirety of the truck. Are there any other tips on safety-minded practices when you're in the shop so you don't get too comfortable?
Yeah, so one that tends to be very common is the floors being, oil and grease
Oh,
and
sure.
clutter on the floor. That, as you're working, you know where everything is at, and eventually it just starts to pile up, and you forget it's there. You step backwards and you trip over something, or you slip on something that shouldn't be on the floor. So that's one thing, is trying to keep the floor clutter and oil and grease off of the floor. Keep it clean. Watch your combustibles. I mean, many shops still use solvent tanks that use combustible fluid in it. Making sure that the lids are shut properly, making sure your brags don't catch on fire. All these things, being aware of where the combustibles are in their proper place and maintained. Another is lifting the vehicle or jacking the vehicle up, or just lifting components. You might look at it and go, it's just a little bit out of my reach, but I think I can pick it up. And the next thing you know, your shoulders hurt, your fingers are pinched, you've hurt your back trying to pick something up, or heaven forbid, you've dropped a truck on yourself.
Oh gosh, right.
Or somebody else.
Right.
And it's so critical just to take the time you need to be safe to accomplish these things. And many years ago, I was told that, I can't remember, it was a shop class of some sort, and the instructor always told us that speed kills.
Right.
And it's that rush that we get into in the shop, that's when we usually get into trouble, is when we are trying to hurry and get a job done quickly, taking shortcuts, and then something big, sharp, or hot bites us.
Right.
And the time that we're taking to heal, if you're able to heal, is time taken away from your job and from anybody else's also. Right. So those are the key points. Also, moving vehicles around the shop, taking vehicles out on road tests. When you are out on a road test, you're trying to take in the whole vehicle. You're listening to what's going on, trying to pinpoint where the problem is. But it's easy to forget that we're out on the road and there's still all these other things going on that need to be taken into consideration also.
Right. Safe operation. I do want to go back. What really resonates to me are those little things that you don't think anything about. I'm just gonna reach in a little further. I'm gonna reach up here. I did it 20 years ago. I could do it 20 years ago. My back won't do it today.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then you're in a world of trouble. It's like I was just reaching there. I mean, you got to really take care of yourself and not put yourself in those positions.
For sure. Because lifting is, we can pick things up, and just because we can pick them up doesn't mean that we should pick them up.
Right.
And that's, we got to look at this process as being a long time. If you're in this for a career, you're going to be doing this for 20, 30, 40 years, and you want to be able to keep doing it. And the only way to accomplish that is to not get hurt. If your back is messed up or other joints or whatever, then you're soon going to be looking for something else. And then, not to mention it, you're at work 8 to 10 or 12 hours a day, but then there's still that rest of the time that you have that you'll suffer the consequences when you should be enjoying life.
Right, for sure, yeah.
Safety is just super important.
Right, yeah. You don't need to try to lift that drum or that tire or do it properly, for sure. This isn't a lifting contest.
Exactly.
I'm going to switch gears completely here, although I think there's probably a safety aspect here as well. You also recently wrote about electrical diagnosis, and this is super interesting, especially with some of the EVs coming to the market that are really high voltage systems, right? And I know we focus in the diesel world a lot on the engine, a lot on the after treatment system as well, but electrical issues can also play into the diesel world. And, understanding, so from your view, is having a deeper understanding of even today's diesel electrical systems, do you see that being able to lay a foundation for what might be coming down the line in EVs?
Absolutely. So, I look back when I started my career, most vehicles were just electronics, we had starters, alternators, distributors, diesel injectors were all mechanical. There was no electronics at all involved in it. And since then, we moved into the computerized things. But throughout all that, electricity has stayed the same. And a few months back, I put together an article on one of the founders that eventually became Mitchell, and that was for the Reed, Samuel Payne Reed. He was an instructor up in the San Francisco area, and he had written the Reed service manual, and then he also wrote a electrical instruction manual.
Okay.
And I downloaded the manual off of Google Books. It's a free download because it's way past copyright. And I'm looking through it, and even though we're dealing with cars and trucks that only maybe had a starter or ignition, very rarely they would have a generator or whatever it was, is the electronic testing procedures still have not changed. I mean, electricity, how electricity works has not changed since we started making circuits.
Right.
They still, the power still has to flow through the circuit. It still has to be able to handle the load that's on that circuit. All those things still stay the same. So the greater foundation that anyone can get in electronics is going to translate over into the new EV world, in that there may be some differences in what's being worked on, but those foundational skills will still be there that you can use to employ fixing those vehicles.
Right.
That will help you in the long run. So absolutely having that background in electronics is key. And I would encourage anyone that's getting started in the field now or have been in the field for a while, dig in, take a class on electronics. It doesn't matter whether you go to your local community college or wherever it is, and just take an electronics class. Right. And become more and more familiar with these parts and processes that the technicians are going to be dealing with in the foreseeable future.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I mean, going back to your safety points earlier, even in today's diesel world, right? There'll be a whole host of new safety processes in the shop that you'll want to take care of too. I know it's early days, but we've written a lot about having a dedicated bay for EV service so that the procedures like the right protective gear is there, roping it off, making sure that you have certifications for there, and only technicians that are certified get to work on those vehicles, right? All that safety basics that we talked about earlier is also going to come over to the EV side.
Oh yeah, because you'd be dealing with much higher voltages. It's going to be kind of like the guys working on the power pole, where you're dealing with,
right.
Hundreds of volts and lots of energy going on there, and very easy to get hurt very quickly.
Right. Jake, wonderful to catch up with you. You are always a fountain of wonderful truck service information. I appreciate all your insight, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon as you turn out even more excellent service columns.
All right, Jason. It's thankful to do that, and thankful to be here talking to you today. It's always fun.